His top two targets also have been itching to get back on the field. Rashad Bateman, he was done last October with foot surgery, and Odell Beckham Jr. set to open up year 9, his first with the Ravens after 19 months away from game day. He popped up as limited on the team's injury report today at practice with an ankle.
I can tell you this, I'm excited. I'm excited to be back on the field. It's truly a blessing. God really, gave me another opportunity to play. The Ravens gave me another opportunity to play. And I don't take it for granted.
I say I'm a little bit anxious, but Coach Harbaugh said to me, don't peak too soon. So I'm trying not to peak too soon. I feel like I'm better, 100%. So I'm ready to show up.
It's been a tough road, but we back to square one. We healthy, and I feel really good. And my teammates have been up for me. The staff has been up for me. So I think I'm in for a good year.
The Ravens had all but one player at practice today, just like yesterday. No cornerback Marlon Humphrey. It's looking more and more like the Ravens will be without their all-pro for the season opener against Houston. Humphrey has been shut down since foot surgery mid-August. On Monday, head coach John Harbaugh said Humphrey is on schedule, but what the schedule is for his potential return date is unknown.
Morgan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock tonight, pressing newly announced mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon on Baltimore's biggest problems, her stance on safe streets. Mental health professionals see a rise in anxiety among students heading back to school, the signs experts say to look for.
A former Baltimore mayor looking to lead the city once again. We have team coverage on Sheila Dixon's campaign launch. Plus, the investigation into the Brooklyn Day mass shooting continues. The meeting that's happening tonight to address agencies' failures. And the former star of That 70s Show sentenced to decades in prison. How the Church of Scientology is involved in this case.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Another candidate throws her hat into the ring. Sheila Dixon, the former mayor of Baltimore, is challenging Brandon Scott in 2024. Dixon vying to lead Baltimore 13 years after leaving office. Today, she announced her candidacy live on our morning show.
We've got to provide fundamental services to our citizens. Trash have to be picked up. Water bills have to be addressed. And it's going to take someone who doesn't mind tackling. And all of us, we have great mayors who have many plans, but how do we implement those plans? How do we attract talented people who are willing to work with you in order to get this accomplished?
Good evening, I'm Maxine Stryker. Thanks so much for staying with us. We have team coverage tonight on Dixon's campaign launch, starting with Rebecca Pryor. She's diving into the crime numbers from Dixon's time in office compared to what we're facing now today.
Well, both Scott and Dixon are running on a promise to help curb crime, but as for who's best suited for the job, political analyst John Deedy says the numbers speak for themselves.
Hello, everybody.
When asked why you should vote for him, Mayor Brandon Scott.
Homicides are down 20%. Shootings are down 10%. That is not the case for many major cities.
Pointing to a recent decline in crime. But when comparing his crime numbers to his new opponent, former Mayor Sheila Dixon.
As far as crime over their tenure as mayor, you would definitely have to say that things were better under Sheila Dixon. That's a given fact.
Under Mayor Scott's watch, homicides among the highest seen in the city's history.
The number one thing voters are going to look at when it comes to the crime rate, it's going to be murders.
Despite running on a campaign promise to fall below 300 murders his first year in office.
Getting us below 300 homicides in my first year.
In his first year, the city saw 338 homicides and 335 the next year.
I think that part of it is they don't fear the consequences or don't care about the consequences. Sheila Dixon inspires more fear than Brandon Scott does.
The year before Dixon took office, Baltimore recording 282 homicides. After taking office, that number falling to just 234 in her first year and 240 the next. A 17% drop in homicides in her first 365 days. But according to political analyst John Deedy,
there's a lot of things in Sheila Dixon's past with ethical issues.
That progress potentially overshadowed by her own crime.
They're like, she did a good job, but. And the but is the big problem.
Dixon's term ultimately cut short after being convicted of embezzling donated gift cards, a mistake Dixon says she's learned from and is ready to make right.
People will just have to, see the results. A lot of times it's not a matter of saying it, it's a matter of your actions behind it.
Other crime issues facing the current mayor in the last year, car thefts and juvenile crime, both skyrocketing. Reporting from City Hall, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
The mayor has been touting the decrease in homicides and non-fatal shootings this year. Mayor Scott saying it's because of his crime-fighting strategy. Maryland U.S. Attorney Eric Barron points to his new partnership with City State's Attorney Ivan Bates.
We think it's clear, and the data demonstrates that it's because we're working as a team. We're working collaboratively. We're being more focused about following the money on those who commit violent acts in our communities. Many of those violent acts are driven by money, whether it be illegal drugs or drug trafficking. And so we're really focused on better following the money as an additional means of taking violent criminals out of our communities.
There's also the ongoing issue of juveniles involved in violent crime. From carjackings to shootings, young people in the city are often seen as both the suspect and the victim. Today on Fox 45 Morning News, we press the mayoral hopeful on how she plans to combat the spike.
Juveniles have to be accountable. We worked closely with the Secretary of Juvenile Services when I was mayor. We created a mental program where we went inside of the facility to work with them. So I believe that you got to sit down. Let's face it. I'm not saying that we lock up everybody. That's not what I'm saying. But we've got the resources. Where's the disconnect? If that person is on a monitor, why isn't someone following that individual? Who's on that monitor to make sure that they're doing what they need to do?
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our team coverage. She pressed Dixon about her call for an investigation into the Safe Streets program.
Sheila Dixon first brought the Safe Streets program to the city when she was Baltimore's mayor. Now she says the program isn't operating the way she thinks it should, and the next step is to take a deeper dive into the program. Safe Streets becoming an early election hot topic. Mayor Brandon Scott touts the community violence intervention effort as the city's flagship gun violence prevention program, often defending it, even with serious questions about accountability and effectiveness. Wednesday afternoon, another shooting in the Brooklyn community. This time, 3 people shot just steps away from the Safe Streets site and in the Safe Street zone. Despite ushering Safe Streets to the city, Sheila Dixon on Fox 45 Morning News Thursday now taking aim at it.
I think Safe Streets needs to be investigated.
Our upcoming mayor, Sheila Dixon.
Hours later, at her official campaign launch,
Good morning.
we pressed Dixon on that call.
It's certain information that's asked about the budget, not necessarily the employees. I wouldn't give up those names. But the funding and where's it going to, where's accountability, and how's the reporting done, and how do you connect what they're doing versus what somebody else is doing.
So what type of investigation are you looking for?
I mean, our funding comes from the state, comes from the federal government, might be an independent entity that needs to look at that.
For nearly 2 years, Fox 45 News has been investigating the Safe Streets program, going to all 10 locations, demanding answers from City Hall about how the $20 million program is spending tax dollars, and trying to understand how the violence interrupters track their mediations that are often used as a measure of success.
Can the public see that form?
We're talking about a very privileged document, Mackenzie.
So there is a document does exist?
We're talking about a very sensitive process.
Can the public see a blank form?
I think the public should trust and know, just like they trust our police officers, that these lifesavers are out there doing their work.
LifeBridge Health and Catholic Charities, the 2 nonprofits running the Safe Streets sites, often just as tight-lipped as City Hall about the operations. That on full display.
It's a tragic, horrendous event.
During an oversight hearing following the Brooklyn Block Party mass shooting, leaving 2 dead and 28 others injured. 4 Safe Streets workers mediating conflicts deemed successful just hours before the chaotic and deadly scene played out.
These should be pretty basic questions that get answered.
I would have to defer, again, respectfully to Monsi as to whether or not they want to share what's been shared with them.
Now, as more questions arise about how Safe Streets operates and how millions of tax dollars are being spent,
are you willing to commit that Safe Streets should stay as part of Baltimore if elected?
Let me put it this way. There's a whole lot of different programs that need to be analyzed.
Dixon not committing to keeping the same program she brought to Baltimore, calling for accountability and transparency for taxpayers. Dixon says if elected, she'll take a closer look at all of the programs operating in Baltimore, and if they're working, great. And if not, she says she won't be afraid to change directions. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, we want you to join this conversation. For city residents, if the election were held today, who would you vote for mayor of Baltimore? Mayor Scott or Sheila Dixon? So far, 98% of those who voted say Sheila Dixon. You can weigh in right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Fox 45 is following some breaking news. News that former That 70s Show star Danny Masterson has been sentenced to 30 years in prison for sexually assaulting 2 women. That sentence comes 4 months after he was convicted on 2 counts of rape. Investigators say those incidents took place in Masterson's home between 2001 and 2003, during the height of his popularity playing Steve Hyde in That 70s Show. Now, the actor was accused of 3 counts of rape, but the jury was deadlocked on the 3rd charge. All 3 accusers are former members of the Church of Scientology, which has been accused of covering up allegations against Masterson. Now, following the sentencing, Masterson's attorney said in a statement that their legal battle isn't over and they will be attempting to overturn his convictions.
We are under a weather alert tonight because of the potential for some severe weather. Take a look at this. Meteorologist Amy Aronson posting this video of hail coming down in Baltimore County. In Baltimore City, though, a live look over the inner harbor there shows clouds, but no severe weather right now. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers is here, though, with a first check of the forecast.
And, you know, there are more storms, Maxine, that are loaded up to the west of the city right now. There's one batch that's now exiting West Manheim up to Manchester, and these were warned earlier down in Howard County, but Owings Mills to Butler, back south to about Columbia and Ellicott City. a line of storms with potentially some pretty vivid lightning that you're getting here. Maybe some hail intermixed as well, but nothing damaging at this point. That could change. So we're going to track these very, very closely as they continue to move off to the north and west of Baltimore. Now getting dropped out of the watch is Carroll County. Everyone else under 1 until 9 p.m.
We're taking a live look right now from Brooklyn Park, where the mayor is answering questions about the Brooklyn Day mass shooting ahead of a community meeting tonight. The acting commissioner, Richard Worley, also there with him. Let's listen in.
Have the community of Brooklyn Homes themselves talk about what they see in the report, what they want, and really working on a community compact with them on how we build and work together to make the neighborhood a better place. This is really about listening and learning for all of us.
I'm going to go to the Afro. So what immediate next actions will be taken for tonight's response?
We'll find out tonight. I think that the great thing about this, Tashi, is that we're going to be working with the community as we work to develop. As you saw coming out, these are folks that I've seen. I was just here last week. Some of the families I've gotten to know, but we're going to be going through this after action report with them and working with them about what's going to happen moving forward and how they want to work together. This is not something that we're going to be dictating to them about.
So you'll all be sharing presentations with the neighbors before they can give their input, right? Can you tell us a little what you're going to say beforehand?
Well, I think I will be saying very little. They've heard enough talking from me. This is really about walking them through everything and then listening. As I said before, this isn't about us doing a bunch of talking. This is about collaboration with the community.
A lot of people haven't been able to physically read the massive report.
Yep.
Can you just kind of lay out how you're being kind of transparent to folks who have not been able to read that themselves to help them understand what all you found?
Yeah, we'll be doing that tonight, right? That's why all the agency folks are here to highlight the things in it. We know that some people don't have the time to do that, but we'll be highlighting the things, the major things and the findings. And then again, as I said, the most important thing, working with the community about the actions that we're going to be taking together after.
WBFF? Now, you guys implemented some changes in the Southern District here after the mass shooting. Just last night, there was a shooting where 3 people were shot. What does that tell you about the changes you've implemented here and how effective they are?
I got that. Nothing. The major hasn't been here more than a week, right? And we know that folks are still cowardly solving their disputes with guns, but we know we have the...
Well, that was Mayor Scott. He's answering questions ahead of a community meeting in Brooklyn Park tonight about July's mass shooting that left 28 people shot, 2 killed. He's saying that tonight will be about collaboration with the community, hearing from them and answering any of their questions they may have about that after action report. Coming up tonight on Fox 45 News at 10, Keith Daniels will have a full story about that meeting.
President Biden cutting off oil drilling in a part of Alaska. I'm Atrell Nashar with whether or not it will impact gas prices where you live.
This week, the Biden administration announced it's canceling a batch of controversial oil and gas leases in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has more now from Washington.
Hey, good evening, Maxine. This is a move that's being celebrated by environmentalists and condemned by Republicans who claim it will discourage domestic oil production. But there's not much evidence that the opportunity to drill in this specific part of Alaska was ever doing much to increase supply.
More than 400,000 acres in a wildlife refuge in northeastern Alaska will be protected from oil and gas drilling, at least for now. The Biden administration's announcement this week that it's canceling 7 open Trump-era drilling leases is drawing praise from those who want to protect habitat for wildlife and disapproval from Alaska's Republican lawmakers. Senator Dan Sullivan claims the president is targeting his state, Senator Lisa Murkowski calling it unconscionable. The Energy Word's Dan Dicker is doubtful it will have any real impact on oil prices, largely because the leases did not prompt much drilling in the first place.
It's not really been a tremendous boon in terms of either production or revenues for either the oil companies or for Alaska, unfortunately.
Major oil companies passed on the opportunity to bid on the leases when they came on the market at the end of the Trump administration. Dicker says environmental protection concerns are just one reason many have gotten out of the Arctic altogether. Another is melting ice.
It actually makes it more difficult to solidify, to kind of anchor those rigs and get them in there.
On the other side of the world, a separate development that's much more likely to cause pain at the pump. Saudi Arabia and Russia announced they're extending oil production cuts of 1.3 million barrels per day through the end of the year. Average gas prices in the U.S. have been hovering around $3.80 per gallon for the past month.
Gas prices, they are ridiculous.
I think you'll see, again, triple-digit prices in oil and, $5.5 gasoline by the second quarter of 24.
Now, price jumps like Dan Dicker just explained there would certainly set energy costs up to be a major issue in the 2024 election, which could hurt the incumbent President Biden. But more broadly, Maxine, CNN just put out a poll showing 64% don't believe that the president's economic policies have improved the economy.
And Atra, do experts believe there's anything that can be done to counter the Saudi and Russia production cuts?
Not really. There's just the plain truth that oil is priced on a global market, so it's difficult for any country that's not Saudi Arabia, for instance, to do anything unilaterally that could improve the price of oil. Of course, the United States is actually already drilling quite a bit, according to the Department of Energy's information agency. The U.S. is on track to hit record high oil output, not just this year, but next year as well. So it's not necessarily true that you could just tap into more of the U.S.'s natural resources and bring prices at the pump down. There's also the Strategic Petroleum Reserve that the administration's tapped into several times before. That's gotten extremely mixed political reaction. And it's, controversial as to how much it's actually helped bring down the price of gas. And I've talked to administration officials about this after other Saudi oil cut announcements, and they just don't seem eager to do that again. So really no clear answer here. As long as Saudi Arabia keeps announcing, and Russia too, extending those production cuts, it's going to be tough at the pump.
All right, Atra El-Nashar live in D.C. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight.
All right, we continue under weather alert as the next weather maker pushes in, and that's a cold front. Butler all the way back down to Owings Mills, Randallstown. No warnings with these, but there still could be some hail, some heavy rain, especially if you're headed north on 83 on the end of the PM commute. Up the northwest side of 695, looking messy. It looks like there's an end on the back side of that, and the very hot weather did continue today with a high 98. That will be moving out eventually, but tomorrow another day in the 90s as this cold front still presses in from the west, cooler air on the other side. But this weather maker still is going to give us a slight level 2 of 5 risk of severe weather here in Baltimore tomorrow afternoon. South and east of the city, it's a 1 of 5 marginal risk. Rest of this afternoon, this evening could see wind and hail. That's the biggest threat. Could see, again, wind for tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. 87, mostly cloudy skies right now on the Mile 1 Taos Camp. Still feeling like 90 on the rear side of those storms. Wind switching to at least briefly out of the west and northwest. Out in the tropics, Hurricane Lee now at Category 4. That rapid intensification has occurred, and it will continue to hold that strength all the way north of the Bahamas. Then it's a question as to where it goes, hopefully back out to sea. But we're going to keep our fingers crossed on that one. Still a lot to watch. Overnight tonight, showers and storms taper by around midnight, but they could be back again tomorrow. I'm going to let you know how long they last, my exclusive 10-day forecast.
Mental health professionals already seeing a rise in anxiety among students heading back to school. The signs experts say you can look for to help your child. Well, as students head back to the classroom, mental health professionals are reporting high levels of anxiety and emotional distress in students, even among the youngest learners. Jim Spiewak from our Sinclair sister station in Salt Lake City has the story.
I have been seeing a lot of anxiety.
The joy of starting a new school year is mixed with feelings of a little anxiety, even for middle school teacher Joanne Brown.
It's interesting because there isn't anything new, anxious going on, but everybody is a little ramped up.
Brown started the school year in the middle of August.
And it's not just the first day everybody's a little nervous. It's been kids bursting into tears for no reason, or I need to call the counselor to come walk somebody out.
Brown says part of her job is to let students know these feelings are normal.
They need teachers to really make them feel like this is their home away from home.
Teachers are not the only ones seeing this trend this time of year. According to Dr. Brian Augustine, a licensed clinical psychologist at the Huntsman Mental Health Institute, even children as young as 5 can grapple with anxiety.
They may not have been aware of how kids might do things differently and how they may be operating, or this kid's got this ability and I don't.
The beginning of the year can present challenges like adjusting to a new school, schedule, workload, or peer pressure.
What worries you as these kids are heading back to school in today's day and age?
I think what worries me really honestly is the internalizing of problems. I think that, and sometimes the judgment that there is something wrong with me.
Navigating these emotional waters is different for every age